everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 15.2 Beta 1 has been out to developers and public beta testers for a few days now, and iOS 15.1 has been out for about a week or so. So I want to talk about the overall experience based off of not only my experience on the iPhone 13 Pro Max and M1 iPad Pro, but also your experience based off the YouTube community poll, where there were about 20,000 votes, at least at the time of this video, and over 200 comments. So we'll talk about that in a moment, but the first thing is some new features in iOS 15.2 that I didn't mention in the initial What's New video. So the first thing has to do with notifications. Notification Summary has a visual update. So they've changed this, sort of combined it into a collage, and you can see that it has, well, Instagram with some comments, the App Store, also Twitter, as well as more updates with YouTube Studio, and you can see that here. So if you tap on it, it expands. Of course, I don't have a summary right now based on the time of day is when these pop up, but if you have that feature enabled, it will look a little bit different for you. Some people were saying that this didn't work for them when they tapped on it. It didn't do anything. It seems to work just fine for me, but some were having issues with it. Now, Apple has actually added a feature, or at least updated a feature on the iPad. So on the iPad, if we go to Settings, under Settings, if we go down to, on the left, go to Apple Pencil, if you have Apple Pencil support, with iOS 15.1 and iPadOS 15.1, Apple added Quick Notes where you can swipe from the corner and create a note. You can see now in the bottom left that we have the option for left corner swipe and right corner swipe, and under left corner swipe, we now have the option for Quick Note. This wasn't there with 15.1. So now we can swipe from the bottom left corner and create a quick note where we couldn't do that before. We can also do that with the bottom right or change it around as we'd like. So we can change that for the bottom right or bottom left and have one do screenshot, one do a quick note, or turn it back the other way or off altogether. So they've updated those options for the iPad. Now they've made some icon changes as well. One of those has to do with AirPods Pro. So if I connect the AirPods Pro to my iPhone 13 Pro Max, let me just take one, put it in my ear here. So now I have AirPods Pro connected and you can see the new icons here. So it looks a little bit different than it did on iOS 15.1. So here's iOS 15.1 on the left, 15.2 on the right. They've updated the icons. They've also updated the icons if you're using certified hearing aid or hearing devices. So if we go into Photos, I took a screenshot of that, and thanks to Ryder for sending that along. So before we had just an ear, but now they've updated it to have an ear with a hearing aid in it. So if you have a certified hearing aid or hearing device that you're connecting to your iPhone, it will be updated with that in 15.2. So not huge changes, but there's some nice changes throughout the OS with things like that. Now, as far as the overall experience of iOS 15.2, a lot of people are saying it's fixed a bunch of issues for iOS 15.1 or earlier versions. So one thing is, the good about this is the shortcuts are working better now. So if you're using shortcuts, a lot of people were having issues with those not working properly. They seem to be working as they used to with earlier versions, so without problem. Also, cellular and phone calls seem to be better for a lot of people. Now, this is not the case for me. I've had to disconnect and reconnect using airplane mode multiple times with my internet connection, maybe playing music and going to the next track with Apple Music. Sometimes it's just not working properly for me, but a lot of people are reporting that it's much, much better. It could be something with my carrier. They are changing towers around here, so it could be related to that. Also, many people are saying that performance has significant speed improvements across different devices. So if you have an iPhone 11 or an iPhone XR or any of those devices, you should see speed improvements with 15.2. I'm seeing that from a lot of people saying that, as well as battery life. A lot of people are saying battery life is much better with 15.2. And I personally have not checked it yet on this phone. I wanted to wait until this video. So if we go to battery health, I'm at 100%. And if we go to the last 10 days, yesterday, I had 3 hours and 32 minutes of screen on time, 6 hours and 32 minutes of screen off time with music and things, and used just over a quarter of the battery. So I'm getting great battery life. If we go the day before, you'll see I have a lot of screen off time because I play music, but you'll see a couple days ago, 3 hours and 42 minutes of screen on time, 8 hours and 23 minutes of screen off time, and about 40% of my battery. So I usually will get through a day with about 50% or more left on the phone easily without a problem. And today, if we go to today, I've used it for an hour and 10 minutes, and you'll see I'm using only about 10% of the battery. So we can easily get over 10 hours of screen on time on the 13 Pro Max, usually up to about 14, depending on what you're doing. So if I was just playing music in the background, as you can see here, I'll get a lot of screen off time, no problem in my car, things like that. So it seems to be doing really well with a 15.2. Now, as far as the iPad, it seems to be really hit or miss. So on the iPad, battery life seems to be a problem for me. Now, I charged this to 100% last night, took it off the charger since I was using it. We'll let it load here. And you'll see the day before I used it for 4 hours and 3 minutes with 30 minutes of screen off time. The day before, 4 hours and 12 minutes. Usually I'm having to charge this about every 5 hours or so, 5 to 6 hours. Battery life has not improved. It did with the initial 15 release, but then it got worse again. So I don't know if it's an app I'm using, but it's typically just YouTube and Safari that's using the power from the battery. And I don't see a whole lot of other things other than maybe Find My in the background and things like that. So it seems to be pretty good for the iPhone, but the iPad is sort of hit or miss depending on what device you're using and what apps. Now, as far as Bluetooth, you saw how that connected, and I'd say that's much improved, whether that's connecting to my phone or switching between devices. So again, if I take my AirPod, put it in my ear, we'll give it just a moment, it connected right away. So you'll see it connected, no issues. If I hit play, it will change on the screen here that it's actually playing, and I have no problems with it switching between this and a Mac with macOS Monterey back and forth. It seems to be much faster. So they've changed something here. Again, I'm seeing that from most people. So all of those issues people were having on 15.1 seem to mostly be resolved on 15.2. However, I do hear from time to time that there is still that storage bug where it's reporting that you have more storage than you actually have on the phone. So if you have a 512 iPhone, this is a 256, maybe it shows you have 300 gigs available. Or you'll see excessive storage taken up maybe for the operating system. Some people are seeing that. So I'm not seeing that here. Well, maybe I am now. I haven't checked this in a while. So now it says I'm using 100 gigabytes. So let me have this refresh and wait just a moment and let's see what we've got. So it finally loaded. It took a moment. You'll see Photos is using about 30 gigabytes. And if we go to the bottom, nothing's taking up excessive data as far as iOS or system data, but it is saying that I'm using 100 gigabytes of storage, and that could be just what I'm actually using. Apps are taking up the most, and so I probably should go through those and see what's using a lot of data. But overall, it's been okay for me. I usually use about 60 gigabytes, so I'll have to see what's using it. It could be some of that ProRes video as well. Now, as far as other issues, people are still having some touch issues from time to time. I didn't really have that on my iPhone, but I did on the iPad. In fact, I had my iPad completely reboot. So I haven't had any touch issues on the iPad, but I was using it. I was watching YouTube, and then all of a sudden it became unresponsive. I thought it was the touch issue returning, but instead it just completely froze and rebooted on its own. And then the Apple logo came up, and then it was fine after that. So I've had a couple strange issues, but they seem to be on the iPad only this time, not my iPhone, other than the cellular connectivity. So for the iPad, again, like I said, it was fine, but occasionally it's sort of hiccuping and it rebooted once on me. So I don't know if that's something with YouTube. All of my apps are up to date, but it could be something like that, or it could be the iPad itself needs a little bit more time for them to fix some issues with iPadOS since it is beta 1. Now, also, other than that, people are having issues with CarPlay. Some people are saying that 15.2 fixed the issues with CarPlay and cellular seems to be working better. And also I got an email from someone in Poland saying that it was working better for them now, where iOS 15.1 wouldn't work with CarPlay, 15.2 is working with CarPlay. So there's definitely an issue. I think Apple will address this soon and then fix that. Occasionally I will hear from people with green tint issues, but I tend to tell them take your device in. They didn't seem to fix it like they did on the 11 Pro Max or 11 Pro. So I think it's a hardware issue at this point. Otherwise, I haven't heard too much more as far as bad things with 15.2. I do hear quite a few things with 15.1 where people are frustrated with it and waiting for that update. Now, as far as when to expect iOS 15.2 and the release date of that, well, I think we'll have another beta either in a week or two. It depends if Apple's doing a 2-week or 1-week cycle. Lately, they've been doing 1-week cycles, and if they are, we can expect an update as soon as this coming week on the 2nd or 3rd usually, and then one every other or every week until the final release. If they've been doing what they've been doing in the past, we can expect about 4 betas, then a final release at the end of November or sometime in December. Apple generally goes on vacation in the mid to late December timeframe around Christmas, where they take time off. And so I would expect that update either in the beginning of December or late November. But we don't really know until we see when they're pushing out the betas and when we get closer to a final build number and what they've got as far as finalizing that. So we'll have to wait and see. But I do expect maybe a beta this coming week, with one every week until then, or we could skip a week or so. We'll have to wait and see what Apple does, but we don't really know, and then we'll move on to following versions. Also, we could have security updates such as an iOS 15.1.1 in the meantime. Apple did that with 15 to 15.0.1, 0.2, so maybe they'll do something with 1.1 and 1.2. So it's possible this time around. Apple's been very random and very aggressive at fixing these, so we'll have to see if they're going to do that. We've got no information about it, though. So hopefully we do see some updates for things like CarPlay and initial bugs that people are having. Now, as far as the YouTube community poll, like I said at the time of this video, there are over 20,000 votes with 208 comments. And as you can see, 14% of you are using the beta, 72% of you are still on the public version of iOS 15.1, 5% of you are on 14.8.1. So you stayed on 14.8 and then they offered that security update. So that was great to see them do that. Oh, and that's one thing I forgot to mention is you can roll back to 14.8.1 on an iPhone 12 now if you have a computer. Since it's signed, you should be able to go back using a computer if you have your hands on that IPSW file and you want to do that. 1% are still on 13.7. I'm not sure why you would stay on that version at this point, maybe jump to 14.8.1, but 1% is still on that. 8% are using Android. And let's take a look at some of the comments here. So if we take a look at these, we'll go to newest first, and you'll see people are still commenting. So I really appreciate it. Anyone that voted or commented, you'll see the first comment here from just an hour ago. It says, on my 13 Pro Max on 15.2 Beta 1, I can see an improvement on performance. Also battery life, it's been great, but the huge improvement for me has been the modem update. Now it's working like a phone. It's supposed to, because I was having connectivity issues since I bought the phone at launch day. Anoop says, iPhone 12 mini, I've had issues with the personal hotspot since iOS 15 Developer Beta 1. Option to enable personal hotspot disappears after any call. Reported, posted about the same on Reddit. A few people seem to have the same issue. Network reset fixes things up for a while, but it isn't a permanent solution. I would think about contacting your carrier since they can disable that feature remotely. So they can actually turn off the option for you to be able to use a personal hotspot. So maybe there's something odd with your account there. Phil BKNY says, is it me or is iOS 15.1 keep eating the battery like crazy? Since update to iOS 15.1 on iPhone 12 Pro Max and iPhone 11, both are suffering from significant battery drainage. Sometimes screen freezes for no apparent reason as well. Safari, mail apps, and messages. And I meant to mention this earlier also. My wife said that since updating to iOS 15.1, she's been having major battery issues as well. So there's definitely something going on. I'm on the beta and have no issue, but I hope they push this out more rapidly than last time just for those issues. Renell Butler says, using it on the iPhone XS Max, there seems to be no glitches as of yet. Around near the next beta release, something always seems to occur. I'll keep you posted. Christopher Palmer says, using my iPhone 13 Pro and iOS 15.1, battery life is good overall. Still have a few glitches with the stock app or stock Apple apps. Notes will lock up and has to be force closed. Travis Myers says, iOS 15.2 Beta 1 on iPhone 12 Pro Max. The only issue I'm having is that my phone has not once read 5G like normal and instead has been on 5G for about 90% of the time and LTE for the other 10%. Chief Dan says, iOS 15.2 is pretty stable so far and it even fixed some bugs for me, but battery drain is still here and it's still horrible. I use my phone for an hour and it drains 20%. When I go to settings, there's a lot of screen off time that is being used not by my apps. So iOS 15.2 must be draining in the background and Apple needs to fix it. Been experiencing it since iOS 14.6. I would say you've got some sort of app causing this, or you need to reset your settings because 14.6, since then, there's been different iterations that have had good battery life. So I would definitely try and reset your settings or maybe even start over and see if that helps. There's definitely got to be something using it though. Moonlight Cloud says, using iOS 15.1 on an iPhone XS Max, it's great and smooth, but the battery drains faster than previous iOS updates. Mo Elvis says, still having some strange bugs when my AirPods Pro are connected. It seems the little animation pop-up doesn't show anymore at the top, but battery life is great. iPhone XR. Graham Evans says iOS 15.2 beta runs fine on my iPhone 13. Haven't come across any bugs or change in battery life. Love the new privacy report. Tasso says notification sound problem still exists. 11 Pro Max. Sanway Souza says seems pretty stable for me on iOS 15.2 on iPhone 10. Does appear to be a little bit buggy with the keyboard though. And so that's everything with iOS 15.2 Beta 1. Like I said, expect a new beta fairly soon, and hopefully we'll get something in between to patch some of the small issues people are having with CarPlay not working. And other people have been having issues with CarPlay where if you don't have CarPlay and you try to plug in your phone, you can't get audio out of it. So I've been hearing that on and off with 15.1, but most of those issues seem to be fixed with 15.2. If there's any other new features, though, I didn't mention in the video, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already, though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.